So today I'm super excited to be interviewing Marisa Peer, who is a globally acclaimed therapist, best-selling author, award-winning speaker. She's helped clients, including Hollywood celebrities, CEOs, royalty, and sports stars for over 30 years. She's created the Rapid Transformational Therapy and now trains thousands of therapists each year, creating a ripple effect of transformation worldwide. Marissa has also developed powerful self-hypnosis programs designed to release common blocks people face in every area of their life, from self-confidence, weight, relationships, finances, and much more. Wow. So you've definitely been very busy over your lifetime, Marissa. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much. And you're joining us from sunny Dubai, I believe.
Yeah, it's very sunny here.
So do you remember when we last met? When we first met, shall I say?
Global citizen in Ras Al Khaimah. I sort of highlight of my year to go there. I absolutely love it. It's such a nice place.
It was fantastic. Do you remember your talk? Because I certainly did, which is why I hunted you
Yeah.
down for this particular interview.
It's funny because I didn't even know I was doing a talk until I got there. I knew I was on the panelist. No, you're doing a talk, so I had to very quickly put that together. But yes, I remember it very well.
It was about specifically addictive behavior
Mm.
and how it affects the next generation, which I again want to be covering that amongst the many things I'm going to be trying to focus today. Because if I spoke about your whole career, we'd be here for about a day, maybe even longer. So I'm going to focus specifically on generational wealth because that's what we are all about, and the pressures that come with inherited wealth, and how generally how do you help families and the next generation specifically to deal with the pressures and the stress of inheriting wealth or taking over a big family business?
Well, the big thing is with humans that, we like to feel we've earned it. We get a lot of our self-worth from I earned it, not just in relationship, even in relationships. When you pursue someone and they like you, think, oh, I earned that relationship. I worked hard to win that person over. And we like it when we can say, I earned that. I worked really hard writing that book. It took me years to build this house. When we just get it, it actually has no value whatsoever. And because it has no value, we often need to get rid of it. You probably know that 70% of lottery winners, which is a huge sum, are totally bankrupt in 3 years because they didn't earn it. They don't really value it. They also have this unconscious guilt about even having it because it separates them. So I worked with a man who worked in a factory, won $10 million 30 years ago. So it was a lot, £10 million. He lost it all, went back to the factory and said, I'm happier back here. I didn't belong. When I bought a house, nobody liked me there. And when I went back to my community, they rejected me because I was so wealthy. But now I've lost all the money. I like the camaraderie of being with these people. So the other end of that is inheriting phenomenal amounts of wealth. You have a few things going on. First of all, I didn't earn this. So I have a lot of guilt and shame. I work with one particular person whose father was very clever and made a lot of money, left it to his son, who probably lost half of it immediately, investing it very badly because he really wasn't his dad and people expected him to be his father. So there's the guilt about, I didn't earn this, the shame about, I didn't work for it. And then the third thing is the isolation. When you have tremendous wealth, I remember going to his house, I went to his boat, and he had so many staff and so many hangers on, but really no friends because we like people who share our vulnerabilities. We like people who are like us. And when you have billions of dollars, there's very few people who are like you. So you have loneliness, isolation, shame, blame, and guilt, all of those things. And we think we envy people with money. We think they're bad people. We have these words like dirty money, filthy rich, fat cat, rich bitch. There's a lot of envy, a lot of dislike. So it's not actually, I remember also going to another class, I was thinking, gosh, I'd never want to live like this. I couldn't wait to go back to my home because it was just this massive, massive house. It was too big, too many staff, too many security, panic rooms all over the place. And you think, wow, this is not really relaxing at all. I remember talking to his daughter who said, I don't like it here. And they trained, there's a panic room. If somebody, you've got to get in this panic room. And that really wasn't good at all. So not only are they unhappy, I don't know if you saw the documentary on, I've forgotten the name of the woman who was it head of Lancome? Anyway, it's a strange life. It's a very lonely life often, unless you can do good things with the money. If you do good things with it, it's different. But if you just use it in industry, it can be more of a curse than a blessing.
So despite the fact that, we talk about financial freedom, people are prisoners of their own finance by the sounds of things.
I mean, if you have so much money that you have to travel with bodyguards, at my daughter's school, there was a girl there. I mean, we're not wealthy, and her bodyguard slept in her bedroom. This was a boarding school. And you think, wow, where's the freedom when you're 11 years old and you have a bodyguard sleeping in your bedroom? You can't go for play dates. That there isn't really a lot of money comes with the opposite freedom. It comes with a lot of stress, a lot of responsibilities, a lot of pressure.
Amazing. But so, I mean, wealth itself, though, means well-being. And has this important meaning been lost over time to simply mean money and assets? And if so, now what can be done to educate people to appreciate what it actually means?
But when you say well-being, what do you mean? Do you mean financial well-being?
Just generally well-being. I mean, the term wealth, the archaic term of wealth, actually means well-being as opposed to being financially rich. And has that term been lost over time because maybe it's, as advisors and the professional advisory world, what does everyone focus on? They focus on financial capital, building it, saving it, securing it, storing it. No one's actually out there to speak about the family and helping them secure well-being with the financial capital.
Yeah, I mean, there are people. I was at Richard Branson's island last year, and he's certainly cracked the ability to have money, enjoy money, and share it with other people. They're the three variables. You're going to have it, but you've got to be able to enjoy it. And one of the ways you enjoy it is by doing good things with it, being a philanthropist and sharing it. And I would say Richard is probably a master at that. He's always happy and jolly. He does a lot of good work, but he really enjoys his money and shares it and enjoys experiences. So you can certainly do it. I mean, but you have to kind of take a little while and think, what do I need? What do I want this money for? And now I'm getting the money, getting more money and more money. Is it giving me what I need? Is it making me happy? I mean, we look at someone like Paul Getty and we can see, gosh, no, clearly in that family, and maybe even the Kennedys, there's a lot of families that are dysfunctional, the Kennedys too, where there was an enormous amount of money, but it's not the money, it's what the pursuit of it. It was Lillian Betticore, I think I was talking about. It's living that isolated life because of money that's very, very destructive.
So how do you encompass, I mean, you mentioned that Richard Branson's got the perfect balance. How can that perfect balance be achieved? And how can it be, because I say when you transfer wealth to the next generation, that wealth means so much more than just financial capital. It's, human and intellectual capital. And how important is that to transfer to the next generation so that they're prepared to receive the wealth and they don't treat it as a curse, like you mentioned with those previous examples?
Well, that's the thing, most people are not doing that. They're teaching their children how to get more, how to invest it, what to do with it, how to get equity. They're not really saying, look, this is a huge responsibility. This is all the downside of it, and you must do good things with it. And then we have this other belief that people who pursue wealth are not spiritual. I met someone a few years ago, a very interesting man who'd become so phenomenally wealthy and thought, wow, I've got so much money. What can I even do with this money? And he started to rewild swathes of the country. He created acres of land for bees and extinct butterflies. And he became very spiritual because he went to live in nature and saw the wonder of nature and the wonder that his money could do to help nature, because we know there's so many plants and species that are becoming extinct. And I love that story because he wasn't a spiritual person. He was a very driven to get money person. When he got it all and got more, and he didn't come from money, he came from the East End of London. But when he had all that money, he kind of thought, wow, well, what can I do with it? And I do see that quite a lot. People say, I've got so much. And often they say, well, I might as well do something good because I've got so much. And I think that's what we should be teaching people all the time. When you have so much, what can you do that's good? Where can you make a difference? What can you do that would give other people joy and by nature you joy? Because we don't really have joy just from having money and counting it. We have joy from what can I do with money, not just for myself, but for someone else.
Creating a purpose greater than individual needs.
Yeah, the purpose, yeah.
So again, you mentioned philanthropy. Is that a core component to secure happiness with
Oh,
wealth?
100%. Even if you don't have a huge amount of money, even if you have some money, it is an absolute core component because we don't actually fear dying. We fear dying, having never made an impact on the world. I was born, I died. What's the point? But when you've done something philanthropic, I can't say the word, philanthropic, you do have that. And you think, I did something good by being here, something good happened. So I think it's very important to learn all about philanthropy and to see what you can do and who can you benefit. And it's a wonderful feeling when you think, gosh, someone else is having a better life because I was able to share something.
And it's a good, almost a good lesson to pass down, and it brings the family together as well, especially the family members who are not directly involved in the family business or in the investing. Philanthropy tends to bring all the family members together.
Yeah. Many years ago, it was the strangest thing. This man turned up in my office, suicidal. And he told me this story. And he said, I was born into a criminal family. When I was a tiny kid, they would put me through the doggy door or the cat flap or a bathroom window, and I would open the front door. And I got very rewarded for that. And I never knew anything but a life of crime. And one day I woke up and my own home was being robbed. And he knew it was someone had set him up, his friend. And his wife promptly left him and said, I can't live like this, because it was a very violent robbery. And he said, so now I'm going to kill myself. I'm just waiting till my parents die. Then I'm going to kill that friend, my best friend who set it up. Then I'm going to kill myself. And when I talked to him, the guilt he felt, because all his life he'd gone, oh, well, they have insurance. He had to be robbed himself to realize how painful and traumatic it is. And I said, well, you do have another option. Go and give it all back. And he said, I said, because mostly they robbed old people. I said, go to an old people's home. And so it was very sweet. The next day he got his Ferrari out and went to an old people. They went, well, they can't get in a Ferrari. So he came back with a bus and he took them out for the day. And he began to buy coats for old people, pay their heating bill. And he said to me, I've never been happier. All my life I took. But the day you showed me that the only way to get over this suicidal desire was to give back, because I'd taken so much and given nothing. And I began to take people out to the seaside, go and visit them, buy them things they needed, like simple things like a coat, a jacket, play darts with them or checkers. He said, I've never been happier because I feel I'm doing something good and they really like me. Before I was doing something bad and nobody liked me. And I loved that story because all the money he'd stolen, it was a lot. Hence he got burgled because he had so much. What gave him absolute joy was going fishing with an older man, going around to see someone, playing cards with them and taking them a hamper. He said, I've never been happy, but I'm happy now because happiness is not from receiving, it's really from giving. But the problem is when you get so into wealth and needing more and more and more and more, you forget about giving and you're just receiving.
So, what sort of lessons then can parents and grandparents be giving to the next generation, children, stroke grandchildren, so that they are prepared to inherit that wealth?
Well, you have to start early. What are you going to do with it that's good? I mean, that would be, let's not talk about how to put it in the bank and acquire more and more and more. And let's talk about investing. It's good to make money. But let's start early about what we can do. I used to take my daughter every year to feed homeless people. And she loved it. She felt really good. She really enjoyed it because she was giving something back. I used to take her to an animal sanctuary every Christmas. So you need to start doing this with your children. It's no good. You have to show them. You have to take them places and say, we're going here. We're doing this. And when they see what people don't have, Diana, Princess Diana did that a lot with her sons. And it's a very good thing to do. It's not enough to just tell them, hey, you should tithe or let's give money away. You know, last New Year's Eve here in Dubai, I have a friend who's very successful, and he was saying that one day I think you have Deliveroo in the UK, but here we have something called Talabat, and this guy delivers some food. And he said, "What are you eating?" And he said, "Oh, I have a cup of tea and a packet of biscuits every night. I don't have money to eat." And he's not even wealthy, but he began to go to these kitchens and have little Tupperwares made of food. And on New Year's Eve, we went out in his car and we were delivering all this food to these people, these drivers who deliver food, but they're sending their money home. So they live on $1 a day. They live on a packet of cookies and a cup of tea. And when it finished, I went to a party, but the happiest New Year was the first bit, just giving out chicken curries. And they were so happy that we did that. And, you know, that's the thing to do. You've got to not do it, but feel the joy. There is a great joy in giving. And so it's no good talking about it. You have to experience it and think, oh my God, that was so good. I want to do it again. That was so good. I want to do more of it. But you'll never know how good it is until you do it.
No, and obviously do what I say, do what I say rather than do what I do rather than do what I say is quite an important concept, because children do tend to pick up on the habits, good and bad, of their parents and grandparents. So yeah, I love that example of you literally taking your daughter to feed the homeless. Amazing story, to get personally involved in the philanthropy rather than just handing over a check.
Of course.
Every so often. No, thank you very much for sharing that. I mean, you mentioned quickly about the downsides of wealth, and clearly no parent wants to bring up children so they end up getting involved in addictive behavior. How can that be avoided? I mean, I've never met a parent who wants to see the worst for their children. Clearly, the reason why you have children, because you want the best for them, whatever that may be in their terms of life. How, as a parent or even a grandparent, what can we do to ensure that we provide the best for our children, but obviously balance support and challenge at the same time, so you don't give them everything?
Well, most people who become addicts do it because they have this emptiness inside, and the emptiness tends to come from the unmet needs we had as children. So children don't really require that much. I mean, they require a lot of attention, but they need to feel safe, significant, connected. They need to feel they matter. And of course, obviously, when you're very wealthy and you're traveling a lot, you tend to have nannies and other people raising your children, and they tend to not stay. And so therefore, all a child needs, they need you to be present with them, to be connected, safe, have certainty, to be loved. But if we're giving them different people to care for them, we have to wonder how that will turn out. And, you know, the biggest thing is to be present with your kids. So you have to think, well, how do I do that? You know, but how you do it is try and do all your work when they're at school, when they come home, be present with them. I mean, when I was writing books, I found it harder to be present with my daughter, because once you start to write, it's so engrossing, you just want to go all night. But you have to be aware of, you know, the messages. And when you're always at work, and they're being raised by other people, straight away they feel less important, because a child doesn't have logic, only feeling. And a child up to the age of 7 will think, my dad's at work because he likes work more than me. My mum's in a meeting because, well, that meeting is more interesting than me. Children can't work it out. And you see, children, in order to make sense of a situation, take ownership of it. My mum's always away because I'm not interesting. My dad's not here because I'm not enough. They have to take ownership of it to make sense of it. And again, it's no good telling them I'm working to give you everything because I love you. And one of my clients was telling me, I said to my son, what the hell is wrong? I've given you everything, private planes. He said, yeah, except the one thing I wanted, a dad in the house. You never gave me anything, because I didn't want the private planes. I didn't want to go to war. I wanted a dad who was there. I never saw you for months on end, and I never got what I wanted, because what I wanted for you to play football with me, for you to make breakfast with me, for you to sit and talk to me. I didn't want that. And he said, I was so shocked when he said that, because I thought, wow, I never thought about that. I gave him what I thought he wanted. And what kids want is they want you to be around, but great wealth will take you away from them. it can be very, very difficult to balance it. But you got to find a way, you know, have staff do the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, but you should be playing with your kids and taking them to the park and teaching them to read. You shouldn't really be giving that to anybody else. Give them the other stuff, but don't give them the raising your kids stuff.
Yeah, I love that because one of my mentors once told me that children spell love time.
Yeah,
Time.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
of
And,
course.
and being present with them and being there for them when they need you.
Mm,
But and
yeah.
do you see as a therapist when a parent isn't involved in the upbringing of their child, how does that affect that child when they become adults?
It's very sad, but very true that when a child thinks the parents don't love them, they never stop loving those parents. They immediately stop loving themselves. And that can last their entire life. I mean, there's so many people we can look at in the world, people who are raised in their parents, and going to go, wow, look at how damaged. I mean, there's the very famous video that everyone's seen about, you know, the Queen, the previous Queen, went on a cruise, came back, Prince Charles, and he shook her hand, he waited in line, and he didn't really know who she was. And I mean, she was a wonderful woman. She put duty first, but she would go off and she had to leave her children for 6 months at a time. And that can cause immense damage. It's a little different now because we can take children with us. The days where they were seen and not heard have long gone. But you have to spend quality time with your kids. It goes so quickly. So, you know, take them with you, be around, come home early, you know. It's that great thing about we spend all our time making money. Then we spend all that money because our kids are in therapy because they never saw us. So what's the point?
No, I fully agree. And like I said from the outset, as parents, we always want the best for our children. But
Yeah.
what does that actually mean? You gave a great example of the man thinking that providing financial wealth to his son was everything that he assumed his son wanted. But in fact, he just wanted to spend quality time
Yeah.
with his father. He
Quality.
wanted his father to be a father, per se.
Yeah.
And it's the little things in life. And why do you think that message has been lost? Because
I
for me,
don't know.
that thing's like common sense, but
Yeah.
clearly it
I
isn't.
was talking to one of my clients who's very smart, and he said, you know, I have quality time with my kid, not quantity time. I said, but if you dated a woman, you wouldn't go, hey, I've only got an hour a week, but it's quality time. I'm going to come on Zoom and tell you a story because that's it. I tell my kid a story once a week. We go on the Zoom. We have quality time. But he doesn't want that. Imagine trying to date someone. I've got 2 hours on a Sunday. They go, oh no, I want some quantity time. So you do have to sometimes point it out. In fact, not long ago, I was giving a talk and this guy put up his hand. He said, hey, can you answer this question? How can I make my kid good at everything? I said, are you? And he said, what? Good at everything? He said, no. I said, well, there's your answer. Unless you are good at every subject, do not ask your child to be good at it. Because anyway, you've kind of missed the point. We're here to be good at one thing. Geniuses are good at one thing. I mean, I'm very good at therapy and writing books, but I'm not good at feng shui or car maintenance. I don't really cook. I wouldn't know how to do gardening. I have no idea how to perform surgery on somebody because you're supposed to be good at one thing. You know, I was talking to Stephen Bartlett and he said, I employ people who are good at one thing, which is very unusual. He said, they have to be good at, I like to take people on who are good at one thing, really good and not good at anything else. And usually we're looking at people say, are you good at this? And can you do that? And can you multitask? But that's actually the wrong question. It should be, what are you good at? And as a parent, you say, hey, you know, you're brilliant at IT. You don't need to learn woodwork. There's no need for you to learn French or German. You don't have to do any of that stuff. Maybe a bit of exercise in sport. But if you're brilliant at IT, why have you got to do anything else?
I thoroughly agree. I mean, that comes from a really great saying from Bruce Lee, who said, I don't fear the man who knows 1,000 kicks. I fear the man that does one kick 1,000 times.
Yeah, isn't that brilliant? You know, my dad was a very revolutionary head teacher because he would let kids self-select their lessons way back in the 70s. And he could see clearly where they were going to go. And the kids who weren't very bright, he took them out of school out of classes, and they would mow the lawn because there's a lovely school in Cambridge. They would be in the computer room fixing computers. They'd be in the dining room helping make lunch. He said, this is what these kids are going to be doing. They might as well do it early because it makes them feel good. And we all envied them because they didn't have to study Latin or French like we did, sitting in the bored out of our minds. They were out painting white lines on the tennis court. And now in the whole of Scandinavia, all children self-select their lessons. And it's such a good idea because you learn quickly, what are you good at? And again, that's another parenting skill. When you see your children's gift, encourage it. It doesn't matter what it is. Don't say to them, oh, look, I know you're good at art, but you're going to go into the family law firm. You're going to be an accountant. You know, I would never say to my daughter, hey, you're my only child. You're going to have to be a therapist and take over the therapy business because that's not her skill set. It's mine. She's an artist. And she said to me once, Mummy, I could never, ever have a normal job. I said, well, that's great. Then don't. Just, if you know that already, then really work on your art because you already know that you're never going to have a normal job.
So how important, therefore, is it, in your opinion, to allow your children to follow their pursuit, their individual pursuit of happiness? I mean, you touched on it there, not forcing them into the family business if they don't even want to do it, because they'll probably be the worst person to lead that family business.
Well, the thing is, you know, when you have a child who's an artist or a dancer or a singer, you also have to say to them, look, you know, it works in three ways. The first way is find your gift. And then really work on saying, you know, this is my gift and I'm here to use this gift. But then you have to work out how to perfect your gift. And then you have to take your gift. So my daughter was very reluctant to take her paintings into galleries, of course, because her first thought was they're going to reject it. She's like, oh, Mummy, they're big canvases. I can't take them into a gallery. I said, well, you can. You can load them onto your iPad. And I can't take in one. I said, but if you want it, whatever you require is going to require something of you. If you require to be a well-known, well-paid artist, that requires of you to learn marketing and cold calling and to really do what you don't want to do. So when you see your child with a skill, you're going to have to say to them, look, everything you want to say yes to, are going to say no to something. I'm going to say yes to fame. I've got to say no to this fear of going through the door of a gallery, lugging my painting, and they go, oh, no, I don't like that. And in fact, for my daughter, I was very pleased that the first gallery said, absolutely no, this is not our style, we'll never sell. Then she left, they went, but over there, they would like it. When she left over there, when she left, they've had it in the window. But it was good for her that the first person said no, because part of success is having that bounce back, that resilience, that I hear no, but I don't hear a denial. I hear a delay. You're the wrong gallery. You're the wrong person. You're the wrong customer. So the way you help your children is see their gift, nurture, but teach them some skills of success, which is don't take no for an answer. Keep going. Don't be easily discouraged and believe that, you know, when one person says no, someone else will say yes. I mean, only last month I listened to Demi Moore saying, I was told I would only ever be a popcorn actress. I was told I'd never be enough. But you see, the thing is, someone told her. But it's not for someone to tell her. It's for her to tell them, hey, this is my skill. I'm an actress in my soul. And you can't tell me I'm a popcorn actress. I mean, Elizabeth Taylor was told you'll be an actress, but never a movie star. That wasn't true. So we have to give our children this resilience to say, self-motivation, that's the thing. And, you know, most people who make it are self-motivated. We don't wait for someone else to go, hey, that was good, I like it. So many of us now are going to work for ourselves. We're at home on our laptop. We might be inventing something amazing. But if you don't have a boss to observe your greatness or go, hey, well done, today you did this, you really have to learn two things. You have to learn to self-motivate yourself. You also have to learn self-praise, because praise is the thing that builds you. And so if you don't have a boss, you have to start saying, oh, I did really well today. I handled that situation well. I was really good with that client. I wrote a really good piece of my program today. Because if you don't praise yourself, you'll never have that mindset of, I've got something to offer you.
Well, that's really important. I'm glad you mentioned it. It's almost like we sometimes forget to even love ourselves.
Oh,
to,
yeah.
to give us the pat on the back and say, actually, I did well today. We're too busy saying I'm not enough.
I know.
I could
And
have
you
done
have to keep
better.
it like a muscle. I call it the praise muscle. Are you developing your praise muscle? Because if you're not, it will wither away. So, and nothing will build your self-esteem and growth. If you want a growth mindset, you must have praise. But we're not taught, your own praise is as impactful as a praise of someone else. So think of what someone else might say, and you say it. I'm a dedicated employee, I'm diligent, I'm hardworking, I've got a genius brain, I come up with amazing ideas, I'm easy to talk to. Don't give that job to someone else, do it yourself.
Yeah, love that. It's all about your self-talk. But
Yeah,
again,
so
we
sure.
forget this, don't we? We don't follow what seems to be straightforward and brilliant advice.
And yet children are very good at it. When they're very little, if you say to them, what do you think? They go, I think it's great. I think I'm really clever. When they're very young, if you say to them, well, what do you think about your art? They go, I think it's amazing. My daughter would come in dressed in like a summer dress and ski boots. I go, what do you think? She goes, Mummy, I think I look wonderful. Because when they're very little, they have that. And then gradually it chips away when we start to go, you can't do that, or you look ridiculous, or that's not going to work out. And so we start off with it and then we lose it. And then we have to get it all back again.
How do we retain it then, Marissa? That's really important what you just said.
Our parents, instead of your parents saying, oh, my darling, that painting is wonderful, they go, what do you like about it? And they go, well, I like the way that it curls like that, or I like the purple thing in the corner. So you're teaching them to really notice what they're good at. So part of being a great parent is asking your kid, how do you feel when you're out with the grandparents or playing cards? Or how do you feel when you're writing that story? And whatever they tell you is what you feed back. And then you say, no, I love the fact that you love reading. I love the fact that you can do maths in your head. That's an amazing thing. So you praise them for something you notice them doing. You don't go, you're great, you're amazing, you're wonderful, you're the best person in the whole world, I love you. You say, I notice you have a gift for numbers. I notice you can add up in your head. I notice that you're really good at creating stories. Or I notice that you're really kind to your brother or sister or the dog. So you're praising them in the way that they notice their gifts, and they can let that in because it's specific, it's not general. I love you, you're amazing is very nice. But when you say, I was really impressed when you were with your grandma the other day, and I noticed that, you let her win a card, but you were very clever how you did it, very subtle. That's a gift. So they like that because that makes them grow, because you're praising as something they have and something they do. If you just say you're beautiful or you're wonderful, they don't believe you because you haven't given them any evidence. They like a bit of evidence. Evidence is really good, in the same way that you'd love it if your girlfriend or your child or your boss said, you know what I love about you is you're so funny. You can sum up a situation in 2 minutes and always make me laugh. We like that rather than, oh, you're lovely. So we like evidence-based praise because it goes in, because it's real.
A specific praise them, but also at the same time, how do we? Again, I'm talking as a parent or even a grandparent. How do we toughen our children? How do we toughen the next generation so they don't give up at the first time they hear a no? I mean, you mentioned
Yeah,
Demi Moore saying, no, I am going to be an actress. I don't
yeah,
care what you say, almost,
yeah.
and pursue what has been a phenomenal career. But how do we teach that to our children so they understand that no is not necessarily a bad thing, so they can
Yeah.
take it and don't give up straight away?
And I see that now with schools where every kid gets a prize, or
Yeah,
these
horrible.
parties where every kid wins. So it's past the parcel, every kid has to win. And that's not really very good, because we have people who are better than us, we're not going to win every race. And so we have to let children fail. We have to and teach them that, that was someone else is a better runner than you, but you have your own skills, and we have to show them that, because when you make life perfect, Nigella Lawson said something I always loved. She said, I've seen people ruined by a happy childhood. It was so blissful that nothing would ever be as good. For me, it was so bad that nothing could ever be as bad again. So I could only go up. But if your childhood is idyllic and perfect, you never learn anything else. And, children are not averse to, throwing something at you or stamping on you or crying or getting upset because, that's reality. So we can't cushion them. We can't cushion them from everything. They learn that life can be unfair. They don't win at every prize. But, schools could do a lot by, if you would reward effort and not achievement, you would teach kids, oh, I get rewarded for trying hard. When my daughter went to school, there was one gifted child in the class, and she won every prize for everything. She never even tried, and all the other kids would try really hard, and they didn't ever win. So if you only reward achievement and never effort, then the kids who try hard and don't succeed give up very quickly. And so when you reward effort and they fail, they don't have that, oh my God, I'm damaged for life, because they got rewarded for trying very hard. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a very important lesson in life. I mean, most successful people worked hard to get what they achieved in their lives, even though they may be brilliant at whatever it is they do, or seemingly brilliant, but no one sees the story of the build up on how they got there. People just see the success and make the false assumption that it was magical.
And then they'll tell you, actually, like they'll say, I was doing up a house, it took 3 years. I finished it. I thought, oh, I think I'll go and do another house up now, because I realized that I actually really enjoyed, although it was, I enjoyed the process. I remember when I wrote my first book and couldn't wait for it to be finished. When it finished, I felt kind of bereft because I'd actually forgotten that when I was writing it, I was engrossed. It was very rewarding. And I actually missed it when I put it away, when it was completed, because we forget that it's not achievement, it's a journey to achievement.
Yes.
When we're building something, it feels quite exciting. And when we stop building it and just sit back, which is why so many people want to build more, because they think, well, I need to do that again now, because I really enjoyed that process of creating. As humans, we're wired to work and get the reward and working it. And if you just get the reward without the work, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't, and you're back to, inheriting wealth and not having done anything for it. It doesn't feel good at all.
No, of course. I mean, and would you, for example, tie up an inheriting an amount of money to an achievement? So getting your children to actually do something in their lives or in their careers, whatever it may be, and then giving them the reward as a result of achieving X, Y, Z, rather than saying, doesn't matter what you do with your life. At the age of 21, you're going to become a multimillionaire.
Yeah, one of my clients, it was the saddest thing. On his son's 18th birthday, he gave him a Porsche, and he went out and he crashed it and he killed his best friend. The son survived, but imagine that. And then, who is it, that very famous actor, Francis Ford Coppola, son out on a ski boat with Ryan O'Neill's son and got decapitated. Because when you give your kids speedboats and Porsches when they're not even 20 years old or not even 25, they don't have the maturity to handle that, which is why a lot of people say the money's in a trust and they get it when they're 35 or even 40. Don't give your kids money too young. I had a client of mine whose son was in jail, immensely wealthy, and I would go and visit him, and they couldn't understand why he was in jail. He was smuggling hash oil. And I said, well, you gave him everything except one thing: drive. He never had any ambition. I want a restaurant, you bought it. I want to, you bought it. But he was never hungry. He never understood that, oh, let me do this myself. Kids go, I want to put my coat on myself. I want to feed myself. No baby says, keep feeding me till I'm 6. They want to grab the spoon. I see that with my daughter's little boy. He, at 10 months, he doesn't want to be fed. It has to be himself. They have to make everything like, because he can't let them feed him. He wants to do it himself. And so that's in children very early. I want to feed myself, dress myself. I want to do it
myself,
And so imagine what happens when we take that away from them. Let me do your homework for you. Let me tidy up your art. Let me buy you a business. Let me fund everything. They forget the joy of I mean, when I was, I think, 18, I worked in a shop and a cafe, and I bought a really old Volkswagen, and my dad had to put a paving stone in the trunk to stop it shaking around. But I loved that car because I worked for it. But the boy that got that Porsche and crashed it on the first outing, we human beings are wired to earn. You probably know about the Maslow marshmallow test, where every child that learned to delay gratification, when they followed those children, their relationships were better, they had more money, they had more peace because they'd learned to delay gratification. That's a skill. But if you just take everything, there is no skill, but because there's no pleasure that I waited for that and I really enjoyed it, or I got more because I earned it because I got a reward. But if you take the reward without the effort, it doesn't feel good at all.
No, I thoroughly agree with that sentiment. It's so powerful. So as parents, therefore, the message is get your children to earn the
Yeah,
money, get them to do something, give them some challenges, get them to understand that, life is
yeah,
tough. The
yeah.
reality of life is that it's tough, and there will be some downturns in life. That's just natural. It's not a
But don't,
straight upward curve.
yeah, but don't make that classic mistake, which parents do with a grace of intention. Oh, you want money? Clean the guinea pig's cage, take out the trash, wash the dishes. Now they're learning. I get money by doing really menial stuff. If your kid has any talent for art, say, I want you to design the family Christmas cards, or even if you never use it, I want you to wrap up the gifts at Christmas, wrap up something. If they're really good at cooking, get them to in the kitchen doing something very early on, because now they're getting money for their gift. Getting money for taking out the trash is very nice, but they're not being paid for something that makes them grow. So find their skill and say, you're really good at this. Even like, you're really good at adding up. So I want you to do some family budgeting, even if you never use it. And when you let them empty the dishwasher, they chip everything anyway. So find something better that uses their skill and get them to do that. So I mean, my daughter, I used to have it next to me, she would pretend to be my PA, and she would write down stuff in a book and write down appointments. And she would also make Christmas cards and did that because she was very artistic. And I'm glad I paid for that and not washing up, because she learned early, I get paid for skill. And the more I develop the skill, the more I get paid. So the more I develop the skill I've got, you can never develop the skill of washing dishes and taking out the garbage. So try, if you can, to get your kids to be paid for doing something they already like to do and that they're good at.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Now I'm going to touch on your expertise, which is therapy. If therapy is the treatment of mental conditions by verbal communication interaction, but is there a negative charge around the word therapy? I mean, does one have to admit that there's something wrong with themselves first in order to receive therapy?
Yes, I know that's true, because so many of my clients say, I'm going to see my coach, or I'm having a coaching session.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies I work for say, we say to them, this coach is coming in and you're seeing a coach. And if I was working with very troubled children, we would never be called, they go, this is mummy's friend and she can do some magic and she's come to help you. Or this is someone that understands. So the word therapist, for people who've got something, it comes with, there's something wrong with me. Kids do not want to be taken to a therapist, but they're very happy to have a performance coach turn up on the screen in their bedroom and teach them about music or the guitar. But therapy really, I mean, if you break it in the word therapist, it says the rapist. So clearly nobody loves that. But it isn't a great word. I'm seeing my shrink, or what's wrong with you? But I'm seeing a performance coach. I'm seeing a high performance coach. I'm seeing an influence coach. I'm seeing a coach for public speaking. Is I'm going to improve myself, going to a therapist, I'm going to find out what's wrong with me. Maybe I'll never find out. So yes, the word, we call, what I do is called RTT, Rapid Transformational Therapy, but really just call it RTT because people love words NLP, CBT, RTT, but they don't really like saying I'm going to see the therapist. They go, oh, what's wrong with you? So they're saying I'm going to see the doctor. They'll say, what's wrong with you? So if you're in the business of making people improve, it's better to call yourself a leadership coach, a high performance coach, a wealth coach, any kind of coach. But the word therapist is a little old fashioned now.
To avoid it at all costs.
I mean, no, I'm a therapist. I love being a therapist, but I understand people like different words now. You know, it's like the word people call it biohacking and mind hacking. New words come along, and we have old words. It's like saying the word groovy. It's so old fashioned. So we got to keep up with that and have different words. And eventually, I think we'll stop using the word therapist, and everyone will be using coaching.
Fair enough. Nothing wrong with the word groovy. I like the word groovy. Maybe I'm old fashioned.
Think of a word that would be really dated. Boogie. I'm going for a boogie.
Okay. Yes.
I'm getting off the plane in Ibiza. My friends said, should we go to a club for a boogie? I'm like, absolutely not. My kids are in there. They'll be horrified. But some words just date you, you know, and some words don't. But some words are, the description is incorrect. So I like the word coaching because coaching is expanding and therapy is probably contracting. You always want to expand and not contract.
Why they call psychologists shrinks? I mean, that's a horrible word. Who wants to shrink in their lives? Who wants to become smaller? People want to expand as human beings. So why on earth would you call anyone a shrink?
Yeah, a head shrink. That's what they were. They were head shrinks. They would get in your head. But yes, it's strange, isn't it? We have some words we use that are very peculiar, and we don't even think about what they mean. We say them all the time without any concept of what. It's like when people say, "I'm killing it," or "Oh, I remember getting this PA years ago." She said, "Oh my God, when I got the job with you, I wanted to die." Then she goes, "I met this English guy, I want to die. I'm going out, I want to die." I said, "Stop saying that." I was saying, "I'm killing it, I'm killing it, and I'm dying here." And you have to really think about, because words have an energy all of their own. They have an energy, they have a vibration. And if you're using the word killing it all the time or dying under pressure, or "I'll do that if it kills me, it's the last thing I do," you have to think, why would I even say that? Let's change that. One of the fastest ways to change is to, your words shape your attitude. Look at your language and think, why did I just say I'm chronically tired? I could have said I'm a bit dehydrated. Why does I'm stressed out of my mind? I'm dying under the pressure. This commute will be the death of me, when the truth is, you're lucky to have a car and a commute to work. That's someone else's fantasy dream come true.
Is that about stopping and appreciating your life, whilst at the same time creating that good self-talk? Saying the right words on a repeat basis, so you actually get, boost yourself really, and provide the extra energy for you. But I get exactly what you say. People, so many times I see people that they're like, "I'm so tired, I'm exhausted," and they repeat it all the time. It's like you're convincing yourself that you are this negative person. Like, why are you doing that? Don't be around me, because I don't want to share that energy with you.
Christmas Eve, they go, "It's hell in Tesco." It's not hell in Tesco. You're in Tesco with money to buy food for people that love you. That's someone's fantasy dream. When I was in Zimbabwe, I helped fund an orphanage, and I went to buy some stuff for these children. And it was such a way. I went to this little shop and they had no stock. They didn't have any candy or chocolate or anything like that. So we don't have anything. But I bought what they did have, which is very little. And when I went back the next week, they went, "Oh no, you bought all the stock. We won't have any now for, I don't know, months at a time." I thought, isn't that funny? We sit in the store going, this is hell. Only when you go to a place that has nothing to buy and customers, you realize that hell at Tesco is their idea of paradise. So we get very used to saying, "Oh my God, this commute is a nightmare." I mean, I used to drive my daughter to school, and I had to really stop that and think, I'm taking my daughter to a private school in a car. First of all, I have money to pay for this school, and I get to drive her there every day. There was a time when it was going over this bridge in London, Putney Bridge, and they shut it down. So it was a bit of a challenge. But I look at people on the bus and think, people are waiting at a bus stop and doing 3 journeys. And here am I in my car moaning about it. I've got the heating on, I've got the music playing, I've got a flask of tea next to me. What have I got to complain about? So if you always say, before you go out and do anything, is there someone in the world to go, wow, that's my fantasy. That is my fantasy dream. A husband who leaves his underpants on the floor, a baby that cries all night, a difficult boss. That's my idea of heaven. And secondly, what would you have given 20 years ago to have this problem of driving your kid to a private school in your Land Cruiser when one lane of the bridge is shut? It's all relative. But
Yeah, agree.
if you look at it and just think, why am I complaining? And try and get back into that gratitude, because you always have a choice. You can always choose, even when you look at things that went wrong in your life. You can say, well, I can choose now. Shall I be angry, or shall I choose to? So I'm not holding on to that. Elizabeth Smart, the girl who was kidnapped, the Mormon girl, her mother gave the most amazing talk when she came and she said, Elizabeth, this man's taken 9 months of your life and it's been hell, but today you get to choose. Are you going to give him another minute? Because if you keep talking about it and reliving it, he will win. If you say today, I'm choosing not to give him another second of my life. She said the best punishment for him is be happy. And I loved that, because she was saying, you can choose to be a victim or or survivor. You can choose to be, I'm a fragile person, damaged, or you can say, actually, I'm so resilient, I'm strong. So even when things go wrong, we always have that power to choose what's good about it. What can I do about it? Shall I spend the rest of my life being upset, or shall I go, well, I can always choose what it means afterwards. I got run over 2 years ago in a hit and run. It was a little strange because this guy ran over me and tried to get away. I mean, he got stopped. And I was saying to my doctor, I was so upset. And he said, you should be thrilled. He said, that was a 4-wheel drive. If he'd stopped on your leg, you could have lost your entire leg. The best thing that happened to you was the hit and run, because he drove off. He knew you were under the car, but he drove off. He did you the biggest favor, because if he'd stopped on your leg, you might not have a leg. And I thought, well, I never thought about that. God, how lucky am I to be a victim of a hit and run? How lucky that guy hit me and tried to drive away. So, when you change the things you look at, they look differently. If you change what you're looking at, it looks different. And that's what we all have to do.
That's amazing. And by the way, did you fully recover from your
Oh, yeah, fully
one
recovered.
experience?
Yeah, I was very lucky. I recovered fully.
Super.
I got a court case in 3 months, finally, to take this person to court that ran me over. But yeah, I recovered. I was very lucky. It happened in London. I'd just been in Peru the week before. I thought, oh, so how lucky am I to get run over right outside my house with all my family around? Because everything is a reframe. That's what a great therapist does. They reframe something. I was talking to a girl recently who said that, her brother had swindled her out of her entire inheritance. She hadn't got any money. He'd managed to pull this off. And I said, the only thing that's good about that is he's a horrible person. He's going to have to live with that forever. And, it's a terrible thing, but you have to look at it differently. It wasn't your money. You didn't earn that money. It was your dad's money. He'd like if you had half, but maybe in not having that half, you'll do better than your brother, who's clearly an awful person. What else can you do? I've seen people ruined by inherited wealth. And I was telling that, maybe it's the best thing for you that you'll go out and make your own money. And maybe that money would have tied you to someone like your brother, who seems like an awful person. You just have to somehow try and look at it differently, however you can, because otherwise it eats away at you.
Yes, no, 100%. So you can see the positives out of everything.
Yeah, you can actually. Once you train yourself to do that, weirdly, you really can. Once you train yourself to look at, what's good about it, what could be good about it, how can I look at it differently? Can I see anything good about it? You start to think, yeah, I really can.
So how can we, as human beings, prevent these bad traits affecting us, rather than waiting for something bad to happen and then seeking a cure, per se?
Which bad traits do you mean?
So, for example, why do we have to wait to get depressed in order to seek someone to take us out of that depressive state? What can we do to secure our own happiness without seeking a third party to actually make us happy, per se? What can we do to? I mean, you mentioned self-talk being really important, appreciating life, being present. I mean, these are things. Is there anything else that we can do?
Yeah, happiness is now. There is no destination called happiness. You don't get to a terminal called happiness. We're saying, I'll be happy when I've got that money, when my kids are in school, when I paid off the mortgage. And you have to understand that happiness is an inside job. You actually choose it, and you choose happiness. Sometimes I'm going on holiday and they get so stressed until they get there. And then they get sick because they've been in. You have to say, I'm happy now, right now, this minute. Because our happiest moments are never, on a boat in the middle of the ocean. Our happiest moments are like often getting into clean sheets, stroking our pet, hearing our children laugh. I remember my happiest moments in my entire life when I was a kid were making jam with my grandmother. She'd take me out. We pick the blackberries, we come and we make the jam. She didn't have any money, but it was such a bonding thing. My parents moved to the south of France, and I have no memory of that being happy, but making jam with my grandmother, playing cards, because we were very connected. And so if you ask people for their happiest moments, they'll often say, oh, it was having coffee with a friend, hearing my grandchildren giggle, waking up, and my husband brought me a cup of tea in bed, sitting on the sofa, stroking my dog. No one says, yeah, it was when I was on a cruising around the south of France with, I don't know, some billionaire. I got invited to a billionaire's island last year, and I actually hated every minute. I said to my husband, God, every day here is like a year. I really couldn't wait to get out of there because it was so fake and so orchestrated, and you had to do everything they wanted when they wanted to do it. Meals had to be at a set time. Everyone had to go around the table and have a conversation about something. And we both said, oh, God, let's never again go. It was so hard to get there. We couldn't leave because they had this boat would pick on a particular day. I'm glad I went because I came away thinking, I wouldn't want that life ever. But happiness is little things. If you ask people, they say it's my first cup of coffee. It's something so simple, going for a walk.
Yes, agreed.
Happy. So if you want to be happy, tell yourself it's an inside job and I'm choosing happiness. I'm choosing it. When I had a little baby, I was told I could never have a child. So having a baby was one of my friends. All my friends would go, oh, I can't wait till they're out of nappies. I can't wait till they're at school. And they were willing. And I said, God, I wish every stage took 3 times as long. I wish they were a newborn for 5 years. I wish they were a toddler. I remember driving past someone coming out of a shop with some newborn nappies. And thought, oh, I want to go back and have that all again because it went so quickly. But it's really just being in the moment, because the moment's all you have.
Yeah,
the future promises to no one. And happiness is just the moment. And it's catching yourself saying, wow, I'm so happy. I'm sitting here with a cup of tea, watching the sun come up. And I'm so happy I'm sitting here. And when you're having tea, say like, oh my God, this coffee is sensational. Oh my God, this pear is heaven. Just start saying that, because you're training your brain to look for pleasure in those simple things. This piece of toast is just divine. And if you do it for a little while, you get, it starts to do it back. And then you notice that you're getting pleasure from the most simple things, like, find a shower gel and go, oh, I love the smell of this grapefruit shower gel. I love this particular coffee. I love that particular song. And then you're teaching yourself to find joy everywhere you go. And after a while, it will feed it back to you. You won't have to do anything.
I absolutely love that. So it's being present, being in the moment, and choosing your emotions. I mean,
Choosing to be grateful.
That is so important.
Things. Yeah.
Absolutely love that. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And so I'm going to touch on what is psychotherapy, and how does it differentiate from psychiatry? I mean, do you avoid dwelling on the problem and instead go straight for the solution?
A psychiatrist is a doctor who's designed to prescribe drugs. So a psychiatrist is a doctor who'll give you prescription, is a doctor of the mind and will give you prescription medication. You have to go to a psychiatrist if you want Prozac. Psychotherapist is a talk therapist. So they're talking to you and they're trying to work out through conversation what happened to you, why it happened, how does it make you feel. And there are many different types of therapy. But the only difference between a therapist and a psychiatrist, one is a medical doctor and one isn't. But they're both working with your mind and your thoughts and your feelings. sometimes the psychotherapist is better because they can't prescribe Prozac. They're probably going to work harder to get you better than someone that says, here's a prescription.
Yeah, and obviously that can be damaging in its own right. Constantly wanting a pill to solve your problems.
In fact, after I got run over, I had to see I had to see a doctor for my, and then I had the other side. And they went, well, why don't you just go on antidepressants? Because I'm not depressed. They went, yeah, but if you went on antidepressants, I said, but I don't want to go on antidepressants. I'm reacting to being run over. It's a bit of a shock. Antidepressants aren't going to help me get over that. I have to get over it by making myself walk to the place I got run over in and stand there and realize that actually I was very lucky. I wasn't unlucky. I was actually incredibly lucky. But yeah, psychiatry is just it's someone who will prescribe medication almost all the time, whereas a psychotherapist can't, so they don't.
And
They
how
prescribe.
I mean, I'm glad you touch on the medication. How damaging is medication? How damaging? I don't want to obviously overly criticize that area, but it's this constant requirement, and this is what I'm getting from the general public, to want a quick cure for something. Give me a pill to stop my pain. Give me a cure for my depression. Give me a cure to lose weight. Give me a pill for this and a pill for that. And before you know it, you're on about 20 odd pills, and that causes you all sorts of problems because you're addicted.
One of my clients said, I told my doctor I can't have sex with my husband. She gave me Prozac, and now I still can't have sex with him. But you know what? I don't even care. So I also thought that was quite funny. I'm dead below the head. I don't care about anything anymore because of the Prozac, which is not helpful.
No.
So certainly, if you've been in extreme grief, if something awful's happened, some interim medication could be okay, and pain medication is fine. But we can't, give our lives over to a pill. There's a great book. I don't know if you've read Johann Hari's book, Lost Connections.
No.
Well, he
Lost
tells this
connection.
story, Lost Connections. I wrote it. He tells the story of a drug company who were in Vietnam trying to sell antidepressants. They said, oh, we've got antidepressants here. We got a cow. And this, what do you mean a cow? I said, well, we had this guy and he was blown up in a landmine in one of the fields. And then when he went back to the fields with only half of one leg, he began to get very depressed. He was working in rice fields. It was damp. He'd been blown up there. And so we all clubbed together and bought him a cow. And now as a farmer, he's not depressed. So is that what you mean? An antidepressant is a cow. And they were like, no. But I thought, isn't that clever that they said, they saw the thing. This man is depressed because he's got to go back to the source of his injury. And he's putting a amputated leg in water every day in the rice fields. Why don't we buy him a cow, let him become a farmer? And he's not depressed. So, you always have to look at what is causing the depression. I mean, it's usually three things in my experience anyway. Massive disconnection, which is worse than ever. When I was in LA, I got a WeGov taxis. It doesn't even have a driver. Then you go to a bank and there's no tellers. You go to a store. I went to the Amazon store. I felt like I was stealing everything because there's nobody there. You just go around and buy stuff and go home. So we're creating a world of disconnection, and human beings require connection. So one of the major causes of depression is disconnection, which is why so many old people are depressed. The second cause of it is failing to follow your heart's desire, which is massive. And that comes back again to inherited wealth, where you go into the family business without even thinking, do I want to do that? If you don't follow your heart's desire, do what makes your heart sing, you become depressed. And the third thing are harsh, hurtful, critical words that we say to ourselves on a regular basis. None of those even talk about this chemical imbalance in your brain, which is impossible to find because it was made up by a drug company. No doctor would tell you, I can put on some electrodes, I can find it. They can't. Because I've got this imbalance, so I need to medicate it to get it back. And of course, if you go and hang out with tribes, which I've done quite a lot, you realize that they're not on antidepressants because they're not depressed. And you say, what makes you happy? They go, the sun, the sea, the plants. When you hang out in a different culture, you realize really quickly we're not really designed for modern life, but we've chosen it. And now we have to choose to work it out. But one of the cures for depression is to get out in nature, walk, get your feet on the grass, go around water, hear bird song, go for a walk, just go back to that. That's probably better for you. You're better to have a gym prescription than a pill, and an outdoor gym, obviously no good in London, would be even better for you. But it's being in nature that makes you feel good.
And exercise as well, because you can't
And
be depressed when you're training. It's
no,
impossible.
because of all the endorphins, and being with people.
Yes,
Being
very.
with people is the biggest thing, you know, that our relationships are the key to happiness.
I
And we've
love
got,
that. Sorry,
yeah.
go. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so many teenagers are in their room on their screens and they don't have a relationship. They're all gamers, and that, you know, we're forgetting that relationships are really what it's all about. Who do you love? Who loves you back? What gives you joy? And keep finding what gives you joy.
I absolutely love that. And that stems again from spending time with your
Yeah,
children so they can
yeah.
feel love. So important. So why, again, you talk about connectivity, and I'm going to touch on communication. Why is communication within the family so important to maintain a healthy relationship? And if so, why do families struggle to achieve this? It's one of the main reasons why families fail in terms of generational wealth. It's one of the greatest reasons for generational financial
Because
failure.
they don't talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
That, you know, our grandparents' generation didn't talk. Everything was kept in. They didn't understand that. And each generation is better about talking, but they're better about talking only with their own peers. So, you know, you can only learn stuff by looking at it. If the biggest problem with generational wealth is lack of communication, then that's a huge problem. You have to get over that and say, well, why don't they talk? Did they feel uncomfortable? Did they feel guilty? Did they think it wasn't important? Whatever it is, you know, I went past a cafe and it sat a sign, and it said, we don't have a phone, talk to it, pretend it's the 1970s. And we don't have internet, talk to it, pretend it's the 60s. Well, that was so funny. But true, you know, we're now on our screen, so it's even harder. But you have to make a commitment. We're going to talk to each other. I'm going to tell my children the good and bad of wealth, the pitfalls. We're so busy talking about the opposite sex and drink and drugs. But, you know, we really, Tululu back. My dad told me about men and drink. He never told me about women and drugs. I thought that was very funny. But you got to tell your children, you know, for all you're going to inherit this wealth, there's going to be a lot of challenges along the way. And, you know, it's not the key to happiness. It's not the money. It's what you do with it, how you feel about it. You know, we see so many families ruined by wealth because of the envy and the jealousy. We see enough people who fall out over a will. It's such a terrible thing because all this greed comes up. And yet some people with wealth say, you know, I just gave it away because it made me unhappy.
Yeah, well, you gave the great example of the lottery winners.
Yeah.
70% will lose everything within literally 3 to 5 years. And in fact, 70% of all wealthy families will lose everything within just 2 generations. So again, follows
Yeah.
up exactly what you're saying. And then 90% will lose it within just 3 generations. So it just shows you that there is an issue there regarding emotions connected to wealth, or having that negative emotion connected to wealth. And wealth can
And
be a good thing if it's used in the right manner.
money can be a wonderful thing. It gives you freedom and enjoyment and excitement. But, you know, I put all my clients into three. There's a category, the 1%ers like Richard Branson, who have money and they thoroughly enjoy it. It gives them a wonderful life, but they share that life. They share, you know, even with their staff, you know, they're not mean. Everyone is sharing this wealth. Then there's a second group who believe you can get money, but the price you pay is so high. You know, I'll never be a great parent, especially for women. If I've got a great business, my kids will pay the price. My relationship will pay the price. My health will pay the price. So they go after it. And then the third group don't even get the money because they believe it's just not possible. So one group never get it, one get it and suffer. And the small group get it, do great things with it, make sure that other people benefit from it, which is so important to say, who can benefit from this wealth? What can I do? And the people that do that really do enjoy it because they're sharing the joy of other people. They're not just keeping it all to themselves.
Yeah, love that. And again, highlighting the importance of having a sustainable philanthropic arm to the family's wealth
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
joy that it can provide not just to others but also within the family.
Yeah. Yeah, then you look at people like Paul McCartney, who with all his money would go to this place in Kintyre, and Linda would cook on a peat stove, and they didn't have, it was their happiest moments. They'd take the 4 kids up there and they'd light a fire. There was no electricity and they were all sleeping in one room. And they just felt so connected. And actually, each of his kids is kind of normal because they didn't say, oh, let's go on a yacht, let's go to this, let's take our plane, let's go here. They just did simple things. I'm trying. This footballer, Tony Adams, was telling me that he said every year took his kids to his mum's caravan, and that was their favorite holiday. Like
Wow.
my parents, south of France, but I made jam with my grandmother in her kitchen, and it was heaven. So when you have wealth, do normal things. Take your kids, stay in a caravan, do something very, very ordinary because they really like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's amazing you say that because one of my very good friends, he brought up a story of him remembering his grandmother picking him up from nursery. And it stayed with him to this very day. It was one of the happiest memories of my life. My grandmother just picking me up and walking and being with me and taking me home. Like, wow. And
I remember picking my 2 nephews up from school. I took them home on the bus, and they'd never been on a bus. And they went upstairs. They thought it was so. And when they went, Mum, we've been on a bus, because the parents had a Mercedes and a Porsche. But to them, going on a bus, my daughter's friends who are immensely wealthy, they've got their own plane. And for their birthday, they said, can we go on a plane with people? That's what they wanted more than anything. When they were 18, their idea of heaven was to go on EasyJet to Ibiza.
incredible.
And they were so excited. They'd never been on a plane with other people. They'd been on their private plane. So going on EasyJet to them was absolutely heaven. They could order food, and it wasn't caviar. It was like Pringles and cheese toasties. And then they went to this really cheap place, and they said it was the best holiday they ever had in their life because that's what they wanted.
That's an absolutely amazing story. So, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, what can families do to ensure they create a path for the next generation so they can find their own unique path to happiness and avoid destructive behaviors?
Yeah, well, you'll see a lot of people, like, I know Richard Branson's daughter Holly, she was initially trained to be a doctor, and then she's gone back into his business. But there's quite a lot of families whose kids come into the business, then leave, and then come back later. So don't make your kids join the family business unless they want to. And if they want to, make sure they earn their place. Don't just give it to them. So for the next generation of wealth, you need to have people in that business who want to be there, not feel I've got to be there. That should include your own children. Make them earn it. Notice what they're good at and help them to achieve stuff they enjoy doing. And go back again to what can we do that's good with this money? Where can we make a difference? Even the simplest things where you can make a difference, because that's what you feel good about, that you did something good, you made a difference.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And we're going to touch on briefly on your expertise. What exactly is RTT, Rapid Transformational Therapy? What is that?
So rapid transformational therapy, I always thought therapy should be like going to the emergency. If I went to the doctors and said, hey, I've cracked my knee, I've broken my elbow, or my tooth's fallen out at the dentist, they would say, sit down, let me take away the pain. And I was always surprised that therapy was the only healing modality that said, oh, well, we're going to develop a relationship now. You're going to learn to trust me. And in that relationship will become your healing. When I got run over, lying in the middle of Portobello Road, and I was waiting for the ambulance because I knew when it came, I would be out of pain. And when it finally arrived, it took a bit of a while. I didn't say to the ambulance, hold on a minute, we need to trust each other. I put my arm out and said, take away my pain. He put a mask on my face. I didn't have to trust him. I didn't even know him. He was driving an ambulance. I figured he must be qualified. And so when we're in pain, if you turn up in hospital, you don't have to develop a relationship with anybody. And often you don't, because different people come to see you every day. So therapy said it's the relationship. And while I understand that, I think it's not fair for clients to say you've got to have a relationship over time, because RTT rapid therapy, people come to see us once, maybe 3 times. And we don't have a relationship. When I see a client, when they leave, I say, I hope I never see you again. They say, I hope I never see you again. When they're saying, I believe you fixed me, you helped me, I don't need to ever come back. So the need for clients to keep coming back in order to get better is incorrect, because we should be teaching clients to fix themselves, teaching them this stuff like happiness is an inside job, and the way you feel comes down to the pictures you make in your head and the words you construct, which you are free to change. And so I created a totally different therapy. In fact, talking about wealth, because I have many, many wealthy clients, and I saw something very interesting years ago, that there are 3 ways to have wealth. One is to inherit it. Well, that's, as you and I know, very not common. Another way is to be like Steve Jobs and invent something, but that's also quite rare. But the third way is to take something already there and improve it. So Dyson didn't invent a vacuum cleaner. Starbucks didn't invent coffee, and Lululemon did not invent little stretchy black leggings, but they perfected something already there. They mastered an existing product. If you can take something out there and master it, you can create immense wealth. So many of my clients would talk to me about, I saw this thing and I thought, well, I could improve that. And I thought, well, I could do that for therapy, because it was invented in the 50s when we had lots of time. Women could go to the therapist and talk about how unhappy they were. It could be long. We didn't have phones and things to distract us. But now we live in a very fast world, and we want on-screen therapy too. People say you can't do it on screen. It's actually many times better on screen. People put in their earbuds and they're totally on the screen. They're not aware of anything else going on. So I just kind of took what I thought therapy was and updated it and called it Rapid Transformational. I got a lot of flack from some therapists who said, you shouldn't do that. That's disgusting. You can't put the word rapid in front of therapy, but why can't you? It's like saying you can't say rapid healing or rapid learning or rapid progression. You can. And now we've trained 20,000 therapists. We've got the largest therapy training company in the world, I think. And they're really good and they're doing great work all over the world. So I'm very proud of them. But for them, the lovely thing about being a therapist is it's not about the money. And a lot of them earn a lot of money. Some of them don't. It's a vocation. And it's so lovely that when you do what you love and you love what you do, you actually never feel you work a day in your life. So although I work very hard, I also feel like I've never worked a day in my life, because I love what I do and I do what I love.
You're the second person who's told me that. So that's amazing.
Oh, who was the other one?
When you do Dr. John DeMartini,
Okay, I know.
you do what you love, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah. So find something you love.
Yeah, clearly, it's amazing. I could definitely tell it from yourself in this conversation. You definitely clearly like what you do. So how can we?
Love it.
And I like the fact you go rapid, because I think you're right. The old model, which is a business model, is work with the same client over and over and over again and make sure you don't actually cure them. So they constantly need you, and they're paying you by the hour. So I mean, it makes sense as a business model.
Cure them, they don't come back. So what a crazy model. Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. So how can we find out more about you, Marisa? That's the most important thing. How can we know more about you?
If you go to rtt.com, you can find out all the therapists I've trained. If you'd like to do what I do, go to rtt.com and find out how. You don't need a background in therapy. If you'd like, we have a lot of audio recordings that are free on money blocks, love blocks, success blocks, health blocks. Go to marisapeer.com and take as many as you like. So rtt.com, marisapeer.com. And I'm very glad I'm called Marisa Peer, because you can find all my stuff on Instagram and YouTube. And no one else has that name. So I feel very lucky.
Amazing. Thank you so much for today. It was amazing. That went really, really quick, which is always a good thing. So yeah, thanks for indulging us with your wise words and your experiences and expertise. And that was fantastic. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. And have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.
Take care.